Hey everybody, what's going on and welcome back. So today we're going to be doing some Transformers discussion, and the character today is Brawn. The strong and tough, although small and very brash Autobot who loved to mix it up with Decepticons, sometimes 3 or even 4 times his size. Now Brawn was extremely tough, and he was always portrayed as such throughout not only the cartoon but through the comic series as well. He was always willing to get in there and do the dirty work for the rest of the group. He would be described as what some WWE wrestlers were called, as he was just a bruiser. Now, Brawn, of course, was very over the top in the way he acted and the things that he did, and he would rush into a lot of situations where some of the other Autobots might not be willing to take such a risk initially. And this was just a quirk in his character. This is just part of who he was. Now, Brawn as a figure first came out in the 1984 G1 line and was part of that first wave of mini cars, Autobots, that came out. Now, originally, Brawn's function was listed as demolitions, and his motto was might over microchips. To Brawn, Earth is essentially a hostile environment, and he loves it. Strong, rugged, agile, the most macho of all Autobots. Delights in challenges? Sorry for those not as tough as himself. Second strongest Autobot, can lift 190,000 pounds and knock down a small building with one punch. High resistance to artillery fire. Vulnerable to attack by electromagnetic waves. So this basically would mean that Brawn would be subject to sound wave, or say even frenzies, electromagnetic and sonic waves. This was something that was a bit of his weakness. And there were a few times that they actually showed this, not only in the cartoons, but sometimes in the comics as well. Now, the original figure, while it actually was very quite simple, like most of the other mini cars were when they came out in 1984, he was still a very cool looking bot. I mean, there was something unique about him, and he was slightly different than all the rest of them. Now, of course, he had, somewhat spindly legs and spindly arm, but that was just part of the characteristics of the toy, because they had to figure out the way to transform these things to not only make them look like a robot, but make them look like decent vehicles. And decent vehicles was actually their most paramount thought when they were creating these characters. So, of course, big differences between the comics and the Sunbow cartoon and the original figure was the face. On the original toy, he had a shield over his face. He had no eyes, but he had like that domed helmet. Now, that was the one thing that they kept when they moved them over into the comics and into the cartoons, is they did keep that domed helmet, but of course they wound up giving him a full face with eyes and a mouth and a nose and everything. And of course they changed his arms, to those like hooked like hands that he had on the original toy, to actually having full forearms and hands that were much different than the original toy. But they did keep the basic premise of who Brawn was and what he should look like. And I thought it was actually very well done. And even though Brawn wasn't, the biggest Autobot, and he wasn't the most expensive toy, he was a really cool figure to have. And of course, throughout the years, they've done different incarnations of Brawn, and I really like when they did Combiner Wars Brawn. I thought this was a very well done figure. It kept all the elements of the G1 figure, but then it brought it into the next era of how a figure like this and how a toy like this could look, somewhere in between the original G1 design and the cartoons and comics. And I thought it was amazing. I thought it was very well done. Awesome figure. Of course, there's been many other versions of them. Some I didn't really care for too much, but you know what? It is what it is, and I'm kind of curious to see if they will be doing a Brawn in the Siege War for Cybertron trilogy figures. It would definitely be one that I would love to get another version of, if it was even closer to the original toy, or somewhere in between once again. What do you guys think? Is there a certain character that you really liked? Somebody who stood out? Let me know in the comments down below. Please like and subscribe, and I will catch you next time. Later, y'all.
More than meets the eye.